I realized then that I shouldn't be selling to a retailer. I should be selling to a consumer. I needed to sell to athletes. Those were my customers. And if the customer wanted it, they would ask for it, and the retailer would have to stock it.
Hey Foundr fam, welcome back to the Foundr podcast. If you're new here, make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. We talk to some of the greatest entrepreneurs alive. Now, this is one of the biggest episodes we've ever done. Our guest today has built one of the most recognizable brands in history. You might have heard of this brand. It's called Reebok. In 1958, Joe Foster turned his family business into what would soon become one of the most disruptive names in footwear. And if that just isn't enough, Joe just launched his new book, Shoemaker, which is the untold story of the British family firm that became a global brand. So today we're going to go deep and discover exactly what it took to build an empire from nothing. You're going to hear some incredible stories from someone who's reached the true pinnacle of success. So if you're ready to learn how to build a household name brand, then this interview is for you. So please welcome to the Foundr podcast, Joe Foster. So the first question I ask everyone that comes on is, how did you get your job?
How did I get my job? I created it.
Okay, so how did you find yourself doing the work you're doing today? Like, how did you start Reebok?
Well, I mean, that's a bigger question than you think. I started Reebok with my brother back in 1958, but it's a family story. And the family story really starts with my grandfather back in 1895. In 1895, he made himself a pair of spiked running shoes. And in 1895, that was right at the beginning. He was some people say invented, I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty sure he was a pioneer, really was a pioneer. And he was a cobbler, and he learned his trade from his grandfather, which goes back even further, of course. But his grandfather was a cobbler in Nottingham. Joe lived in Bolton, which is about 60 miles apart, but he wished to go to see his grandfather because he preferred to be a cobbler than a confectioner. His father was a confectioner. And when he's down with his grandfather, we're pretty sure that all went on. His grandfather used to being a cobbler, repair shoes, but also repaired cricket boots. And in those days, cricket boots had spikes in the bottom. And we're pretty sure he said to grandfather, why do you have spikes in the bottom of these boots? And grandfather obviously said, it gives them grip. When they bat him, when they ball in, when they field in, they need grip on grass, and this is what gives them grip. Probably that was that light bulb moment then for grandfather. He was a member of the local athletics club in Bolton. And not a good runner, but he enjoyed it. Made himself a pair of spikes, a nice pair of shoes and so on, with spikes in the bottom. And of course, it moved him up the order when it came to racing, and he came a very unlikely second. Now, he wasn't a big lad. He was not a big lad at all. So I'm sure his teammates sort of said, hey, Joe, what are those things you're wearing? And he probably had to admit it and own up to it. So that started his business because everybody wanted a pair of spikes to improve their running. And that was in 1895. By 1900, he had his own business. So he was a cobbler and he did repairs, but he also had, and the front of his shop, he bought this little shop in Bolton, and one side of his shop, all about the price for cobblers. And on the other side, he also made running shoes. So if you had a pair of running shoes, you could buy a pair, I think then 10 shillings and sixpence, which I don't know how that relates to the Australian dollar, but I'm sure it's less than $1. That's very low price in those days. By 1904, though, he actually had two records with old Alf in Glasgow, Ibrox, and one race. It was an hour race, and during that 1 hour race, he broke 3 world records, which is fantastic. Now, grandfather also got gold medals at Olympics during the first decade of the 20th century. Second decade, more or less wiped out with the war. World War I, they're repairing army boots. And they're scrubbing all the mud of flounders off the boots and repairing them. But of course, we get then to the 1920s. That was his belle epoque. We have a letterhead which shows all the football teams that he was making football boots and training shoes. And you probably can't name any that weren't on the list in the United Kingdom. Man United, Man City, Arsenal, you name them, they're all on this. They were making these shoes. Plus the fact they were supplying all the Olympic teams with his shoes. And he was the official supplier to the Olympics in Antwerp in 1920. And during the 20s, he had loads and loads of athletes winning gold medals. And you may have heard of the film Chariots of Fire.
Yes.
And Chariots of Fire immortalized 3 athletes, Eric Liddell, Lloyd Burley, and Arthur, was it Arthur? Harold Abrams. Harold Abrams. They were immortalized in this film, but they wore Joe Foster's shoes. So you can see that business was real. He knew how to influence his business. Unfortunately, he died in 1933, and I wasn't born until 1935. But I did happen to be born on his birthday, which was quite a coincidence. And my grandmother insisted I'm called Joe. So I am named after my grandfather because I was born on his birthday. 4 years into my life, World War II. I'm only 4 when World War II comes on. And I'm 10 when it's over in 1945. And okay, I mean, we didn't feel any difference. There was war on, blackout, everything. We could see bombs dropping on Manchester. That experience, you're a kid, so what? This is what happens, Is this not normal? I'm only 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it is. But after the war, of course, we, I think 3 years after the war, in 1948, Jeff, my brother, he joined the family company. I went to college and stayed on a bit longer. It was 1952 before I joined the Jerry Foster Company. 1 year later, both Jeff and I are off doing national service. It's compulsory. We're conscripted for national service for 2 years. So we'll leave the company for 2 years. Jeff spends his time in Germany. What does he see? Adidas, Puma. He sees a different side to the business. We come back and 1955, we're back in the family company and saying, look guys, my father and uncle are still running the company by that time. But they're feuding. They're falling out with each other. They don't talk to each other. One is doing hand-sewn shoes. The other one is doing machine-sewn made shoes. And we can't get them to speak. In fact, we're pulling them apart more often. They're fighting than they're working together. Okay, we see this as a failing company. They're making the same shoes that grandfather made in 1933, and they continued into the 40s. World War intervened again, which didn't help as far as being an athletic shoe business. But after that, they'd not really got together to come back and say, well, what is this business now that we have after 1945? War's over, where are we going? No, it was just continuing with what had been there. They didn't have any representatives. They didn't have any agents. They didn't have any marketing plans. They did nothing. What came through the door, they just made it and sold it. And they become quite, Jerry Foster's have become quite well known through the Commonwealth. I suppose in those days it was the Empire, but the Commonwealth knew. And this is why they would be selling shoes, Jerry Foster's, into Australia, New Zealand, Canada, you name any Commonwealth country. In fact, we used to get letters from Commonwealth countries. A lot of people, a lot in Africa, they used to send, because it was a way of learning English. They used to write letters for the catalogues, and they used to send catalogues off. Amazingly, they had this wall next to the desk, and they used to cut the stamps off these envelopes that came in from all around the world and stick them on the wall. I wish I could have that word. It was a bank sale, incredible, but we don't have that wall. Anyway, the history of the Foster Company is fantastic, but father and uncle just didn't get on together. So by 1958, we got tired of trying to get them to learn. We'd been to college to not so much learn a bit more about how you make shoes, because all we knew was how to make athletic shoes, but also for the contacts. for the knowledge of the technology of making shoes. And we made an awful lot of contacts, which became very useful when we decided in 1958 we were leaving, set ourselves up in the town next 6 miles down the road. We set ourselves up, all second-hand machinery, a very old building, an old brewery. And there was only one floor we could use, and that was the middle floor. Bottom floor had no windows at all. Must have been something to do with brewing beer or whatever. And the top floor, the roof was shuttered. It was no good. The roof was useless, and it was raining through all the time. So the top floor was occupied with buckets, tins, and everything to catch the water. And once a week, we'd have to go up there and empty these out. So we had the middle floor, and it wasn't very secure. So the machine was around the sides, just to make sure that we didn't drop through the middle. So we set up then, and we started our company as Mercury Sports Footwear. Mercury Sports Footwear, very nice. We're doing quite well. And we started as cycling shoes, of all things. We didn't want to compete too much with the Foster family, so we would do cycling shoes. And for 18 months, we were doing quite nicely. And our accountant said, well, you better register your name. Oh, right. Okay, why do we need to do that? Well, you're now called Mercury, and if other people start making cycle shoes with the name Mercury, they're trading off the good work that you're doing, and you'll have a great deal of trouble stopping them if you're not registered. It'll become a court, but it could get to court, and that would cost money. Okay, so we had to use a patent agent, and a patent agent, they're the people who would check out whether something's registered. And so we used this guy, and he checked it out, and he said, no, Mercury is pre-registered, you can't have it for footwear. And that was Lotus and Delta, I believe, and they were part of British Shoe Corporation, big company. They offered it to us for £1,000. We didn't have £1,000. We were a fledgling company. We were barely sort of eating, never mind being able to buy a name. So this patent agent said, oh, you'll have to change it. And he said, bring me 10 names. Not one, we've got to check these, and we don't want to do them one at a time because there's such a lot of names pre-registered. And he pointed through a window to a sign, and the sign was Kodak. And I said, why Kodak? It's just a made-up name. It doesn't belong to anybody, anything. It's their name. They make it up. If you can make one up, fine, it's great. So we're back in the office, and we're sitting down. And when you're trying to think of a new name for your company, so we had bird names, animal names, and during 1943, I was only 8 years old, and in a race, I won a race, and the prize for this race was a dictionary, a Webster's dictionary, and a Webster's dictionary is an American dictionary, not an English dictionary. I don't know how the American dictionary became the prize, however. Whilst we're looking for these names, I like the letter R. I thought, it's a nice, strong letter now. So I pick up my Webster's American Dictionary, and I'm thumbing through it, and I came across Reebok, R-E-B-O-K, a small South African gazelle. Oh, great. That goes to the top of the list. Right. So I go along to the patent agent and say, look, you've got your 10 names here, but I want that one. We've got to be in love with this. It's our future. And we just loved the idea that we could be Reebok. As it happened, it came back the only one that was free that we could use. We had a couple of, not objections, but a couple of considerations that the patent agent thought somebody might challenge on. One was called Reebok, but they were a women's underwear company, which he said, no, they won't bother. And it's only phonetics we're talking about at this point. And the other one was Railbrook. Railbrook were Tootles. Tootles were a manufacturer of shirts for men. And he said, but that's all kind of all right, because I'm their agent as well, so we won't complain. So we got Reebok. But the registrar said, well, I can only put you in the B section. What's the B section? Well, the B section means that if anybody comes along to me and says, I want to make use of reskin, I'll stop them. Oh, right, you can't stop them either. However, 20 years later, the registrar came back again to say, we've moved you to the A section. He said, because right now, Reebok is a shoe. It's no longer an animal. So that's how we became Reebok.
Wow, that's crazy. So it was a family business that was going bankrupt, right?
Well, they were they didn't owe any money, but they were not making any shoes. So what was happening with the company is that the orders were coming fewer and fewer. And they used to make school track shoes for schools. And those were bought sort of in the early part of the season. For us, that would be March and April. And those started to get smaller and smaller. They also did rugby boots. And they did quite a decent business, but it was just being eroded away. It was going. And that business, what we saw it was going down. The thing is, there was nothing wrong with the business, but they weren't going forward. And eventually it would fail. It would fail because the orders would just finish altogether. That's why we left. And I think it was about 18 months after we left that, because my father had said to us, look, when Bill was gone and I've gone, this company is going to be yours. And so I was saying, well, yeah, we don't want you to go. But this business will be gone before you go. And we'll be far too old to do anything about it. I say about 18 months after we had left, Bill did die. My father went on until 1976. So we left in 58. We were waiting until 1976 for my father to go. And there would definitely have been no business at all. And when we left, all the football teams that grandfather had been dealing with, they were no longer dealing with them. And so they missed an opportunity there. So it was obvious to us that why had we lost this opportunity? What had happened? And when we left, the football business was then in the hands of Adidas, Puma, and one or two others. Too difficult for us to break into. We needed more influence. But we were good on athletics. We were okay. We were good into athletics. And I used to do the selling. And I would go around to retailers and present my products, Reebok, and the retailer, he would look at me and say, who's Reebok? Well, with this, we've done whatever. And he'd say, well, look, I've got Adidas and I've got Dunlop. Why do I need Reebok? That struck home. Why do I need Reebok? He didn't need Reebok. As far as he was concerned, he just didn't need it. So I realized then that I shouldn't be selling to a retailer. I should be selling to a consumer. I needed to sell to athletes. Those were my customers. And if the customer wanted it, they would ask for it, and the retailer would have to stock it. So he became a facilitator, as it were. To me, then, that's what the retail trade was. They would facilitate. But fortunately, in the UK, we had the 3As, the Amateur Athletic Association, and they had a handbook, and every athletic club in the country were in this book. The name of the secretary and his address. It's just a matter. A few letters went out there. I think maybe 200 or 300 letters went out there. And I offered 15% discount that if they wanted to buy, or anybody in the club wanted to buy a shoe, we got 15% discount to buy direct. Or we could appoint agents within the club, and the agent would get the 15%. So, right, I got a lot of agents. A lot came to me, and our business really took off very well. I even got phone calls then from retailers who were obviously quite close to the club, and you're selling direct to the athletic club. If you stop doing that, we'll stock your shoes. Oh, well, that's a victory. But I said, well, no, this is how we're selling these days. We only offer a small discount. If you want to buy them, you will get them at wholesale price. And we'll send everybody to you. Don't worry about it. But we're not stopping our agents, which was fantastic. Business growing, nice. But as the athletics business in the UK was small compared to, say, the football. And if I wanted to get my business bigger, I had to get to the States. The United States, there, every college, every university, there was coach. And coach was God. And you could get to if you had any athletics ability, you went to university on that. Same with the colleges. So that was a big market. And I knew that was a big market. So in 1968, the British government, in their wisdom, decided they'd like to assist the sports trade to export. Start exporting you. So what we'll do, we will pay for a stand, we'll pay for a return airfare, and we'll pay half of your hotel bill for you to go to America to the NSGA show, which is the National Sporting Goods Show in Chicago in February. I tell you, February, it's cold, 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 cold in Chicago. Oh, I've never been this cold in my life, but it's cold. However, the show is brilliant. And I got a lot of people interested. And they said, well, where do we buy your shoes? And I said, England. And New England? No, England, across the water. Oh, well, no, that wasn't. There was if you get somebody in America, we'll buy your shoes. Okay. So I needed the same thing. What I needed to do was to get them to want shoes. They didn't want them. They were very interested. So I needed a key. At that time in America, running as a category was growing and growing fast. It was driven by Runner's World, which was the magazine. And that magazine, that was a Bible. So we advertised in the magazine, which we got some nice direct sales into America, but this is not what we wanted. We wanted distribution. And this is 1968. It took me until 1979 to get that distribution. But in between time, with Runner's World promoting running and running growing incredibly, along came Nike. Nike grew with this growth of running. Nike grew tremendous. And Runner's World started then to rate the shoes. And you could be the number one shoe. And it happened. Lasted about 2 or 3 years. The number one shoe, the demand for that shoe was immense. So big that nobody could get the shoes. The retailer just couldn't get, Nike couldn't make them. If it was Nike, I think it might be Nike New Balance, but Nike couldn't make the shoes quick enough. They were buying them from abroad. So of course you've got to set things up. So 6 months, 9 months before the stocks really came in to fill that demand. After 3 years, Bob Anderson had more or less been battered to submission to say you can't do this to the retail trade. And so he changed it, and he changed it to a star rating. So if you got 5 stars, it could be 3 or 4 shoes would get 5 stars, and they'd be the top shoes. So instead of just one shoe getting all the demand, this would be spread across 3 or 4 shoes, which was much better. So I realized that what we needed was a 5-star shoe. And if we could do that, that would be the key. So I worked hard on that, and came up with a 5-star shoe. By 1978, we had the shoe at the Commonwealth Games in Edmonton. And we did well. We got some gold medals. We had capes. We had a few top athletes in our shoes. So by February of 79, I had my shoe. I got some good results on it, knew where we were going, and I exhibited this at Chicago in 1979. I had came along. We wanted 25,000 pairs. That's about 6 months' work for our factory. But I knew that if we got somewhere to America, we'd need help, and I already had help at one side there with Barter. I had a good friend at Barter, and we could get some production. But also we wanted a better price, which was not surprising because we knew at that time the production was going to the Far East. There you could get the shoe made for less than half the price we could make them in the UK or even Barter. So we were a bit prepared, or getting prepared for that. And so we now had to wait from February to August when the new ratings came out. And Paul Fineman had also shown good interest in February. He said, I'd love to distribute shoes, but we need a 5-star shoe. We need to get, that would help us get onto the market. So in August, early August, I think maybe the end of July, I phoned Paul because I knew the Runner's World. My name was that go get a magazine. An hour later, he came back, and he came back and said, "Joe, Aztec, 5 stars, fantastic. Oh, that's it, we've made it." He said, "But also your track spike and your racing shoe both got 5 stars as well." So we got 3 5-star shoes. So we really had the key. And with Paul Fireman, he was the door, he was the gateway. And so that's how we made it into America.
Interesting. So we talked about production. which you were doing yourself. In 1978, how many shoes were you moving a year? What did staff look like back then?
Well, back then we probably had about 25 staff, and we were making probably 2,000 pairs a month. It wasn't big, 2,000 a week, and it wasn't very big. But I mean, I'm looking at, look, if we're going to expand our company, we know we've got to have better volumes, and we know we've got a better price. So it was with that knowledge, and with that knowledge, just having got America on board with Paul Fireman, he's ready to go. And of course, regrettably, we had Jeff unfortunately became ill and he died. So right at that time, and it was quite an incredible time that we're ready, because Jeff would have been going down to Barter, taking the production, because he looked after the factory. That was what he wanted to do, was to look after production in the factory. He was very happy doing that. And I could do everything else, which is what I was doing. So Jeff would have then taken the transfer packages down to Barter and stayed with Barter, getting them to work. Unfortunately, because he wasn't able to do that, I had to get a young guy from Barter who came and did some production, but Barter changed the shoe. Barter gave us a big problem. It was a big problem, and in another way, it was a bit of luck, because they had their own rubber factory at Barter, and EVA was a new cushion material that substituted for rubber. Rubber was heavy, EVA was very light in weight, and it was made the same as rubber, made in the same factory, but they hadn't had any experience of this. So they made a batch which didn't cure good enough. And so the shoes that they sent to America, 20,000 pairs went to America, and a big proportion of those shoes, they were failing because it was collapsing, the midsole. Oh. They end up, Paul was disaster, but more than that, they changed the shape of the shoe as well. We had an aggressive sort of look to the shoe. The silhouette was more aggressive, and they changed it because they were shoe producers, and what they'd done, they make it easier for their sewing machines to sew round instead of have these nice square, aggressive look. So a big complaint by Paul. Paul told me, this problem. We came over, went to Barter. Paul never paid for those shoes. So what he was doing, he was getting the orders. Anything that came back, he just replaced. So that gave him some time to work, because Barter would give him credit. But when we're going to the Far East, there's no credit. You've got to have, your bank have either got to back you or you've got to have the cash. So you need the letter of credit. And Paul had no history. The bank wouldn't lend the money. We were not big enough to lend the money. So it gave time to find somebody. And the person that we found, in fact, Paul found him, was Stephen Rubin. Stephen Rubin was Pentland Industries. Pentland Industries, they were in London. But he had a number of companies, and one of them was ASCO. And ASCO was a sourcing company. And ASCO were out in the Far East sourcing the companies, sourcing the shoes. So for a piece of the company, Stephen Rubin, Pentland, gave Paul credit line. Yep. And was very fortunate he had a credit line, because running shoes were doing very nicely. At that time, Stephen wasn't interested in Reebok at all. He just thought by funding Paul in America, Paul would do some selling to the big stores in America for own brands, which Stephen would produce in the Far East. However, the running shoe business was very nice in America when Arnold Martinez, who was a tech rep in Los Angeles, his wife was going to aerobic classes with their girlfriends. And they were coming back really excited, really happy with this. And Harold was asking, what's it all about? And Frankie told him, well, we're exercising to music. Great, the girls loved it. Arnold wanted a piece of that, and he went down there to have a look what's going on. And saw the instructor. The instructor wearing tennis shoes. Half the class are wearing tennis shoes. The rest, no shoes at all. And I thought, what an opportunity. Why don't we make a shoe for aerobics? So he went up to Paul Fireman in Boston and said, Paul, this is a nice new category that's growing here. Why don't we make an aerobic shoe? Glove leather and soft cushion. And the ladies, they'll love it. So Paul said, no, come on, we're doing well with running. Why do we, we can't play around with something that a few girls are sort of taking part in Los Angeles. Oh, however, Arnold wasn't that easily put off, and he went round to the back and had a word with the production people, and he persuaded them to make him 200 pairs of shoe using glove leather, all white, which they did. Arnold gave these to the instructors and some of the class, and all of a sudden we had something changed. This was a total change. What had happened is that Nike, Adidas, they were known to be male, sweaty. This was for women. We've been on the market 2 or 3 years. So we were known a bit in running, but generally across America, nobody had heard of us. We became the woman's shoe, the woman's fitness shoe, and that took off. Being in LA, it was picked up by film stars, whatever. Sybil Shepherd wore them to pick up her Emmy. We had Jane Fonda using them in her videos. And Sigourney Weaver eventually sort of, they made a special pair of stompers. So it started to grow. It took a few years, as anything would do. But once it took off, that was it. It went wild. And we had a growth from something like $9 million to $30 million, up to $90 million, then $300 million, $900 million, all in successive years. The growth was incredible.
Wow.
And this was being supported, financed by Stephen Rubin. But the other biggest problem, of course, was how do you get production for that sort of volume? Unfortunately, and again, it's where your luck comes in. Fortunately, Nike were having trouble. They'd hit a peak and they were coming down a bit. So they were pulling back their production out of some of the factories, and Reebok were able to get in. So that was absolute luck. Because otherwise, the business would have starved the market.
Crazy. So in the 80s, that's when you got into aerobics, right?
82.
Yeah.
When it started, yeah.
So that's what's really accelerated the growth of the brand.
Absolutely, yes. It accelerated its growth because it went, the influence was incredible. When you get the film stars wearing it, and we had Wendell Niles, who was also in Los Angeles, and he got us involved in a pro celebrity tennis tournament in Monte Carlo. So we were hitting all these areas, people, places that were so impressionable for people. And so the influence was incredible. And, in this pro celebrity, we had people like Frank Sinatra, Roger Moore, you name them all. There were so many of these people, with John Forsyth, Jane Seymour. Yeah, they were all wearing the shoes. So this was incredible influence. And it just it grew the company. By the time I left in the end of 1989, I retired. That time we were about 3.8 billion. And I'd been putting on distribution throughout the world. I put the handlers on for Australia and New Zealand. I spent some time down there with them. And then we got to a certain point where all I'm doing is I'm at 35,000 feet. I'm flying between different countries. I'm going around the world about twice a year and visiting people. I arrive at an airport, I'm picked up by a limousine. I go to the best hotels and I'm sitting in meetings. And by that time, we become number one. We'd overtaken Nike, overtaken Adidas, and become the number one company. And I thought, well, I'm no longer. It's no longer the chase. This is no longer the journey. It's for me, the company now is big, really big. We have lawyers looking after the brand. We have accountants sort of making sure that everything works. And so the energy or the thrill of building that brand, it had gone. It's something then that I thought, for me, I just don't want to be just waving a flag and being an ambassador. I'm still an ambassador, but I just retired from the company, from a permanent job.
So did you still remain on the board?
No. I retired totally from it, but it is a bit like the Eagles and Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave. I was always brought back for something, and so no, I didn't go on the board or anything. I didn't want to do that. Because again, you're really talking sort of politics, numbers, and just crazy. So for me, it was stepping back. And yes, they would bring me over, because when they said, well, what's this? And also the IRS became interested, because the brand is really held in the UK and is still in the UK, the brand. But the operation is in America. And I think the IRS wanted to pick up a bit more of the money from that. So, and there were numerous things, lawsuits at different various places. It happens when you get big. And I used to think that, oh, when we get big, no need for solicitors, will be too big. No, it just got more and more. Because I used solicitors for different various things. We'd escaped from numerous problems that would have driven us under. So you need lawyers. And the lawyer that I had first used to make sure we were still in business at one time, he was an intellectual property lawyer. And so I needed that. Going around the world, I needed an intellectual property lawyer to help do the deals. And it was a very interesting time, but that had finished. It was time for me to go.
Oh, that makes sense. So after you resigned, did you start any other businesses?
Well, for 3 years, I was happy to relax and sort of take it easy in Tenerife and just let the world go by and play around with one or two things. But I probably started to miss not being 35,000 feet up. I think it had been a bit of a drug, that needing to be on an airplane, needing to be flying somewhere. So it took a bit of a while to sort of settle down and just totally relax. And for quite some time, that's all I do. I used to go to the all the NSGA shows, all the American shows, and in Europe, because the big ones that were in Europe, we used to go there. And that was ISPO. I don't think it's ISPO anymore, is it? No. I mean, these things have changed, but we used to go and do that. And as I say, the contact is always there. And what happened a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, a good thing that Adidas did, because Adidas, of course, had bought the company by now. The good thing Adidas did was to set up an archive in Boston. And that was great, because I had a lot of stuff, bits and pieces, all hanging around in various places I had and in the attic. And so it was good to get those into the archive, because they have been very useful. So I have a good relationship now with the archive, and usually get to Boston once a year, maybe more on occasion. Possibly next year we may go again to help promote the book, because the book is out over there now, and we'll try and give it some energy, because that's my next goal. The next goal is book to come and a #1 bestseller. If we can do that, then yeah, we'll have achieved something else. But apart from that, really, it's been just driving through Europe. Travel has always been there, and so traveling through Europe, we meet up with a lot of the distribution I put on, whether it's France, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Spain. And so we travel, meet up with somebody, have a couple of days, have some nice meals, sit down, relax, and drink some nice wine. So life is not bad. It's good to do that. For the last 7 years, so I've been writing the book. So, and it's not been all writing, but it surprised me it would take so long, because as a shoemaker, I tended to put too many anecdotes in, too many things. Well, this happened. No, yeah, I'm persuaded and say, no, move a bit that way, do a bit this, do a bit different, get more emotion into it, because you tend to just, oh, well, this happened or that happened. Just, no, let's tell it as it really happened. So needing help, and to get it there, even once it's finished, it takes about 18 months, 2 years to get with the publishers and get them happy with the story and to choose the name properly again. So setting up the book, we had to do it right, and that took a while. So now we're a bit locked down with COVID. It's not allowing us to travel much, but when it's over, it'll be interesting to travel. All my the people that I put on as distributors, we've sent them all a book, and they're all happily reading that. So yeah, we're busy, and it's good.
Awesome. So you would have seen some crazy things from building such a large, well-known brand. I'd love to know, what do you think it takes to build a business of that scale that's like a household name brand?
Well, it takes a lot of luck, and it takes stupidity maybe, because you've got to stick with it through everything. It's belief. You really have got to have belief that you're doing things, and you will get there. And so many times I had at least 6 attempts with distributors in America during the 11 years from first going over there to actually get in with Paul Fireman. And you learn lessons. You learn that how do they sell? Because it's the same lesson I had to learn in the UK. Just to sell to the retailer is not enough. You need to sell to the consumer. So you need to get the consumer interested. So to do that, you've got to have influencers. Something has to influence them to buy. And so you have to find out what that key is for your particular business. And today is so different. I mean, in my days, we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have computers. I mean, the most technological thing I had was a calculator. And that was it. So without that, I mean, I had to fly, I had to move, I had to go take the journeys. I don't think you need to do that the same now. I'm sure people still can travel, but I mean, the way that Zoom and all these things have come on there, we can speak. You're in Australia, you're in Melbourne. I'm here in the middle of France, and this is brilliant. We don't get any breaks. Okay, technology does at times let you down a bit, but what we can do with technology now is incredible. Plus the technology and the product. But you have to have belief in your product, and I believe you've got to start when you're young, because if you're not young, when we started, I was 23, Jeff was 25. We were indestructible. Yeah, what can go wrong? Let's have a go at it. Nothing could go wrong. We were too young for that to happen. We could stand a few knocks, as we did with the name. And in fact, we'd only been 4 years into our business when I get a letter from Adidas. Our silhouette started off with two stripes and a T-bar. They thought that infringed the brand of 3 stripes. We were delighted. Yeah, we were delighted. Adidas recognized it. All of us went on. They're taking notice. We're here. We've arrived. So we have to change our silhouette. A little bit of thinking, a little bit of help, and we came up with what is now known as the Vector. It was the arrow shape on the side of the shoe, and so we now have a recognizable silhouette. And so you have to have something recognizable when you look at why do people can people notice your shoe? Visibility to me is so important. And we can get a lot of visibility on an athletic shoe because you can put your name on, you can put your silhouette, but people can look at it. And not a lot of things in life you can do that with. But once you've got that silhouette and that and your name, and you just keep pushing it, you've got to get that visibility. If you look at Ford have an oval with Ford written in it, and it's never changed, probably since Henry Ford had it designed or designed it himself. And that continual recognition. When Adidas bought Reebok, they changed the lettering, and they started to put what they call the delta. It was like a triangle delta on the side of the shoe instead of the silhouette we know now, which is the vector. And of course, nobody knows it. Why should they? We'd had the Union Jack as well. And the Union Jack was fairly important to really developing the product. Because Paul Feynman wanted to use the Union Jack. I said, we're going to have trouble in the UK if you put Union Jack on a Korean shoe. Everybody's going to jump down our throat saying it can't have a Union Jack. But in America, he said, everybody in America knows the Union Jack. Which, well, and that was it. Because he thought it would cost millions to really get people to know the vector, or in those days also the roads, the Starcrest, which is the 2 points. And it's, so you've got to find something which can be recognizable, unique. If you can get unique, difficult to get unique, but it's still out there. And now with technology and the way things are, I'm pretty sure it's like you've got your t-shirt, not Foundr with an E, you don't the E, you get that recognizable. And I recognize it, I see it. We're on social media, so I see your posts coming up there, and that's the difference. And the fact that you wear it, the fact that that comes up every time. So it's repetitive, it's seeing this thing, and then it sticks. And what sticks, it's not just Foundr with an E, it's an R. And you color the letter R, I think, in different colors. I think I've seen it in red. And so, and I think it's that little tweak, that little bit of difference. So it's possible, it's out there. And what you're doing, you're obviously growing a tremendous brand. And that's your brand name. So don't play around with it. Don't change the lettering. That just dilutes your brand. So for anybody starting off, they've got to try to do some very basic things. First of all, you need a good product. You've got a good product. It sells. So you got to buy it. But then people have to see why they're buying it. Oh, well, we've heard of them. We know them. So, and there's that just grows things. So things can grow if you're willing to stick with it and keep repeating the image. So anybody today, and I think everything moves a bit. It may doesn't go around in circles, it goes into spirals. So you're seeing something, the same thing, but at a different level. And so I think there's, anybody young, if you've got ambition, plus you have to love what you're doing. You have to be in love with it, you have to have the passion for it. If it's just a job, if you're just a 9 to 5, that's all it will ever be, 9 to 5. And there won't be that result, but just keep going.
I'm curious, do you think it's easier to start a business now?
It's always been easy to start a business. It's succeeding in a business, which is the difficult part. People can have startups. Depends what you're really looking for. If you're just looking for a living and you're happy to do that, that's one thing. If you've got ambition and you're looking to a future and you think, wow, we could do this, or wow, you've got to have imagination and determination. So I don't think it's any more difficult. The opportunities are different. I think the opportunities are really different, but they're there. And there will be more and more and more. And I'm sure that COVID is giving a lot of opportunities for some people. Really, and technology for one thing. This has really come along, and direct selling. All that is just grown immensely with COVID. And okay, some of it may dip. The retail street business may improve a bit. We all like to shop. We all like to go there. It's entertainment. Going shopping is going around stores and things. So we all need a bit of that. You can see a lot on television, but where is this going to? Where are we going with technology? Are we going into some 3-dimensional where you're almost there? And we know now watching sport. In sport and cricket, I think cricket has come on tremendously, because we're used to sort of look and you'd see somebody running up to the stumps. So did he hit that ball? You don't know where he's hit until you see somebody running to catch it. Now you're right in there, and they can slow it down. They can show this. it's incredible. I think cricket has been probably one of the best examples of how the business has changed. We have a dog in the picture. our dog was just walked across. But and I think that's why people have got to really pick up on, and with the technology and photography and cinematography, it's incredible. So I think that there are so many opportunities, which it's not my not my time. My time was way back before we even had anything like this. So to think where you could end it, it's immense. It's immense. The world is growing bigger, and the world is growing smaller in a way, because we can cover it. We can get through ours. I don't know how many miles away are we, 12,000 or something like that. And and this is brilliant. We could be in the next room.
Yeah,
it's that good. So you don't need to spend all that time journeying, but what you do need is you need the enthusiasm, and you need to know the right people to talk to, the right lessons to listen to. You can listen to a lot of things. A lot of people have a lot to say, but is it useful? Can you make anything of it? I can tell you how to make some shoes back in 1950s, but no use to today. That's why my book says I'm a lousy shoemaker, because my shoemaking made good shoes back in those days, really good. But today, I've gone onto the building of a brand, and it wasn't a matter of selling Joe Foster; it was a matter of selling Reebok, the name. And if you can sell that, you will become successful. And I think we made it.
So this has been amazing. Like, we have to work towards wrapping up, Joe. You've shared a wealth of how you've built this incredible brand. I'm curious, do you have any stories or critical lessons around building a well-known brand?
Well, I think you have to be very much in touch with your consumer. And you also have to know that whatever you do, you'll get a problem. You'll get many problems. But with the problem, you've got to see if you can turn that into an advantage. And we always used to think, how can we turn things into an advantage? So Adidas complain about what we're doing, so we end up with a better silhouette. Again, I'm trying to sell my product. I have to go direct to the consumer. I have to go away from the common route or the volume route to get to the consumer first. And we had, and I think one of the important things is that whenever you get somebody asking you a question, and we used to get it by email, we used to get it by different things, it's a lot of people, if they haven't got the answer, don't respond. But the important thing is, and I used to say this with our business, look, people around the world, they're all selling Reebok, they're all part of Reebok. And if somebody asks you a question, because we have people who look after different territories, if they ask you a question, respond. If you have not got the answer, still respond and say, well, good question. Don't know about that, but I'll get back to you with it. People wait until they've got the answer. Somebody's sitting there, just, what's happening? So you've got to have that closeness. We didn't get many complaints about Reebok in my early days, but I did get one complaint which started to bubble up pretty big. I got 50 letters of complaint that our shoes were turning the runners' socks blue. Oh, well, the shoe we were producing was always blue, and they always used to run across country and in wet conditions. But it happened on this occasion. We had to go to the tanner and say, what's happened to our shoe? And they've forgotten to wash out the excess dye. And so all this, as soon as the runners were running across anything wet, or in wet weather, they were coming back, and the wives were getting really annoyed. All the socks were turning blue. So we got the answer. We answered everyone and said, look, let's get back to you. What we did do is we sent them all a new pair of socks, but they were blue socks. We sent them blue socks. We didn't send them white socks. So we sent them blue socks, and also said, look, your next pair of shoes will give you 15% off. But the big lesson of that was so many people would not even have bothered. but they won't buy your Reeboks next time. Anybody who bothered, I thought they were always going to be worth turning into an agent, making them part of your company. The fact that they bothered meant that they would talk to other people. So to give them a good deal, 15% off your next shoe. And if you wanted to become an agent, you could earn 50% of all the shoes you sold. So it was turning your problems around and to make into an asset. So we may have got 50 new customers and 50 new believers and 50 new agents. So your business was growing again. And I think at any time when you meet anything like that, you've got to take it and see if you can make the most of it and turn it around.
I love that. So I'm curious, why did you end up selling to Adidas?
Well, I didn't. That was done after I left. And I think it wasn't a matter of selling to Adidas. I think Adidas wanted to buy the company because they wanted more momentum in America. And Reebok had got to the point where it was a bit stagnating. It was like, and you don't plateau. In life, you don't plateau. If you do, and you stay there, you will go down. You've got to keep moving incrementally. You've got to say, how do we keep going? How do we move? What's the next step move? Otherwise, but Reebok had plateaued. The management said, we need a new management. After a certain while, maybe you get tired, maybe you run out of it. With me, when that was, no, I'd done what I thought I enjoyed, and that was me. But by the time Adidas were coming in, the management needed changing. Who knew whether Adidas would be good or not? But it was a good move for Adidas because it moved them up. They're now about $25 billion in revenues. So that worked for them. But I think in working for them, they just they didn't do anything for Reebok. Of late, as I've said, they are moving in the right direction. But I mean, now it is up for sale. They now decided that they're going to sell Reebok. They have a problem because they know exactly how to make Reebok a big company. They've done it with Adidas. They know exactly how to do it. The problem is it's a competition. They're a competing company. They're in the same areas. Good for Adidas to grow their brand. For Reebok, it's stagnated. It's down there. But we have the best history of any sports company. The best. We can go right back. We can show you everything. So it comes as a big name. To revive it and make it big again, not a problem. Unless you're Adidas, who don't know how to do, but they do know how to do it, but have that dilemma of, are they bringing a competition? If they sell it, that's still a dilemma. Because will somebody else be the competition, bring it into competition? No point in buying a company if you're not going to make it work. And it's going to cost somebody $1 billion, maybe $2 billion. So, I think selling Reebok, it was more that Adidas wanted to buy Reebok. And selling it was probably just cashing your chips in for the shareholders. So, and I think it's good in my view as for Reebok because Adidas wants to dispose of it by March, and they seem to be going in that direction. They said they were just thinking about it, but the recent information coming through shows they're pretty keen to do it. So it's going to be interesting. I'm here if anybody wants to talk to me. The book is out there telling the story. So yeah, things are going and growing.
So how does it feel, like not being able to influence the direction of the company anymore?
Well, it's like any child or whatever, isn't it? What can you do? They will go their own way. Whatever you do, you're not going to tell them exactly what to do. You might point them in directions and whatever, but no, it's whatever it is, whether it's a boy or a girl, if it's a woman, then it's a nice woman to have Reebok. It's a woman's shoe. I mean, we got that. You can only do so much. You try and sit on it and it won't grow. It's got to self-develop, and let's hope that that's in a good way. Yeah, I got a good feeling. I've not got a problem with that. It's I think I had a problem when Adidas bought it, but I do realize why. But I think now, no. Let's have a look. I think they have a problem now, and not a bad problem. They're a big company, but it'll be a nice problem for somebody to get the emotion back into the brand. It's there. There's plenty of things about it, but they need that emotion that really was there as we grew, because it was fantastic during that growth period. Everybody loved you. Fantastic. Similar growth period? I don't know. I'd leave that door open. I think somebody could get us up to number 3, overtaking Adidas and Nike. I don't know, but it'd be a good challenge. Somebody likes a challenge. And there we go.
And growing the company, what was like some of the funniest times on that journey? Like, it must have been a wild ride.
It was wild, yeah. Well, we got to the point, I think, when the aerobics thing took off, we weren't growing the company. We were being pulled along. The demand was such. It was a question of the talent had to be keeping up with the demand. And it was exciting because we did so many things. The Monte Carlo tournaments with all the stars there, being part of that was incredible. To become the number 1 company, number 1 brand, at nearly 4 billion, was incredible. And that was in the late 80s. Achieving the 5 stars with not 1, but 3 shoes. These were incredibly uplifting moments. And unfortunately, Jeff only got part of the way. So I suppose really that charged me to finish the job, to really get up there and get us to how far could we go. And that worked. That was really good. But like we alluded to earlier, there's only so much you can do. The brand has to have many people, and it has to have a life of its own. But wherever we can give it some energy, we will do.
All right, so we'll work towards wrapping up, Joe. So where's the best place people can find out more about you and also your work, and where can people grab a copy of Shoemaker?
Well, it's going through, I don't know what whether it's in Amazon in Australia now, but it is, it is. They can obtain it from Amazon. And the only way they can get a signed copy is to come through our website, because we can't move, we can't do much these days. But if they want a signed copy, they can use our website to get a signed copy. If they want it before Christmas, they have to do it very quickly. But yeah, because they want a week tomorrow. I'm getting Julie giving me some advice here. What's not good until March? Oh, right. I believe you're not sending this out till about March.
Yep, correct.
Yeah. So they'll not get it for Christmas anyway. It's not yet. But if they want a signed copy, then use our website. It is in Amazon. I think it's available in other bookshops, maybe, and in different forms. We got audio. I think we have an audio, which is going out as well. So yeah, the book's available, and we've got to get it to number 1, a bestseller.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Joe. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, Nathan, it's been great talking to you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Hey guys, hope you're loving our videos and that you're getting heaps of value from them. If you are, make sure to hit the like button and make sure to subscribe to join the Foundr fam. If you did enjoy this video and want to continue to master your skills, make sure you click here to access your free training now, where we'll go into way more depth with this Foundr.